Hello everyone, I promised I'd be back soon and I am back. Today, we are talking about the US Civil War and more specifically the Battle of Gettysburg and more specifically the Gettysburg movie. Now, this is arguably the greatest US Civil War film of all time. It is painstakingly long, clocking in at just over 4 hours, and I'll be honest, with my attention span, I've never watched the entire movie in just one sitting. Some moments are rather lethargic. But the movie is more than saved by its memorable quotes, its attention to detail, and its historically accurate portrayal of events. We don't talk about the prequel Gods and Generals, though.
I have invited you here because you have called the excellent film Gods and Generals a piece of propaganda.
It is propaganda.
Yes, we do not talk about the prequel. Ronald Maxwell should have just stuck with this. Now, in order to show just how good this movie is, I'm picking out the 10 moments that stood out to me the most throughout this 4-hour marathon. Without further ado, let's talk Gettysburg. But before we look at the scenes, let's add a little bit of context of where we are in the Civil War for those unfamiliar. It's early July of 1863, and the war has largely gone the South's way up to this point. General Robert E. Lee of the Confederacy is planning to attack Pennsylvania, a northern state, in what has largely been a war fought on southern ground thus far. A win here would be pivotal for the South's chance of winning the war at large. At the same time down south, the Union was advancing through a siege in Vicksburg, Mississippi, led by General Ulysses S. Grant. The Union wanted to split the Confederacy in two by cutting off supplies, and gaining access to the Mississippi River would do this. Spoiler alert, the siege was successful for the Union, as was Gettysburg, as this was the major turning point in the war. But now, let's truly get on with the best scenes from Gettysburg. First scene number 1, we have I'm Fighting for My Rights. Take a listen.
Why are you fighting this war?
Why are you fighting it?
I want to free the slaves, of course. Preserve the Union.
I don't know about some other folk, but I ain't fighting for no darkies one way or the other. I'm fighting for my rats. All of us here, that's what we're fighting for.
For your what?
For our rats. Why is it you folks just can't live the way you want to live? And let us live the way we do? Live and let live, I heard some folks say. Be might less fuss and bother if more folks took it to heart.
Well, I appreciate you talking to me.
See you in hell, Billy Yank.
See you in hell, Johnny Reb.
Now this scene stands out to me for the way it doesn't demonize either side in terms of just the ordinary men fighting the war. On the Union side, the soldier explains his noble cause, preserving the Union, freeing the slaves. Of course, the Southerner goes on to say something racist about the darkies, but doesn't necessarily care one way or the other about them. Southern apologists may use this as an argument sometimes, but yes, it's largely true that most Johnny Rebs were too poor to really care much about slavery, and this guy, he was just more concerned with his homeland, or as he puts it, his rats. Of course, it is a lighthearted moment to hear Billy Yank's confusion at his hickish accent. Not to mention, the "see you in hell" salute is certainly one of the coolest parts of the entire movie. First scene number 2, we have Buford discusses the high ground. Take a listen.
You know what's gonna happen here in the morning?
Sir.
Old damn rebel army's gonna be here. They'll move through this town, occupy these hills on the other side, and our people get here, Lee'll have the high ground. There'll be the devil to pay. The high ground. Meade'll come in slowly, cautiously, new to command. He'll be on his back from Washington. Wire hot with messages. Attack! Attack! So he will set up a ring around these hills. Then when Lee's army's all nicely entrenched behind fat rocks on the high ground, Meade'll finally attack if he can coordinate the army. Straight up the hillside, out in the open, in that gorgeous field of fire. And we will charge valiantly and be butchered valiantly.
Now let's be honest, anything with mustachioed legend Sam Elliott is automatically awesome. Casting him to play the Mayor Wild West has been about the only good decision modern Family Guy has made, but I digress. Now, it should be said that one of the most important principles in the art of war, as described by Sun Tzu, is to hold the high ground. Union General John Buford, played by Elliot, recognized this. He knew what a disaster it would be if the Confederates took the high ground, saying, "We'd be butchered valiantly." Now, while the first day of Gettysburg was rough for the Union, holding the high ground helped slow an early Confederate advance. For scene number 3, we have Chamberlain inspires his men. Have a listen.
All of us volunteered to fight for the Union, just as you did. Some came mainly because we were bored at home. Thought this looked like it might be fun. Some came because we were ashamed not to. Many of us came because it was the right thing to do. And all of us have seen men die. This is a different kind of army. If you look back through history, you will see men fighting for pay, for women, for some other kind of loot. They fight for land, power. Because a king leads them, or just because they like killing. But we are here for something new. This has not happened much in the history of the world. We are an army out to set other men free.
Now, the early part of this film revolves around Union Colonel Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain and his leadership of the 20th Maine in battle. Many of his men were deserting, sick of the bloodshed of war, having no strong will to fight. As we saw from scene number 1, it was more the Johnny Rebs who believed they were fighting for their rights. What were the Yanks fighting for? Preserving the Union? Well, Chamberlain put it in a different light. You were fighting for those slaves in the South. You were fighting to free other men. And in a way, that was kind of unprecedented in history, to put yourself in a selfless position. Not to fight for money or land or women or whatever, for other people. And as great as this scene was, there's an even better scene with Chamberlain, proving that Jeff Daniels should have won an Oscar for his portrayal of him. For scene number 4, let's do that other Chamberlain scene. In this case, it's bayonets. Have a listen.
Well, we can't run away, and if we stay here, we can't shoot. So let's fix bayonets. We'll have the advantage of moving down the hill. They gotta be tired, the Revs. They gotta be close to the end if we are. So fix bayonets. Ellis, wait, Ellis, you take the left wing, I'll take the right. I want a right wheel forward of the whole regiment.
What, you mean charge?
Yes, but here's what we do. We're going to charge swinging down the hill. Just like we pulled back this left side of the regiment, now we're going to swing it down. We swing like a door. We're going to sweep them down the hill just as they come up. Understand? Does everybody understand?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Ellis, you take the left wing, and when I give the command, I want the whole regiment to go forward, swinging down to the right.
All right, sir. Fine.
Move.
Everything is perfect about the way Chamberlain calmly leads his men into battle, with bayonets no less. Again, pretty hard to believe that Jeff Daniels also played Dumber from Dumb and Dumber. Anyway, Chamberlain's troops were pretty incredulous at their colonel's orders. "What, you mean Chadge?" asks his New England counterpart. But the way it seemed, Chamberlain had no choice but to fix bayonets. This was on the second day of Gettysburg at the summit of Little Round Top, when his men were beginning to run out of ammunition. They were fending off wave after wave of Confederate advances, but this ballsy bayonet charge finally pushed a Confederate assault back, allowing the Union flank to hold. All that really matters, though, is Chamberlain's epic call for bayonets. Let's listen one more time. Bayonet! For scene number 5, we have Kilrain the Irishman talks to Chamberlain. Take a listen.
Of course, I haven't known that many freed men, but those I knew in Bangor, Portland. You look in the eye, there was a man. There was a divine spark, as my mother used to call it. That's all there is to it. Races are men. What a piece of work is man. How infinite in faculties, in form and moving. How express and admirable. In action, how like an angel.
Well, if he's an angel, all right then. But he damn well must be a killer angel. Colonel Darling, You're a lovely man. I see a vast, great difference between us, yet I admire you, lad. You're an idealist. Praise be. The truth is, Colonel, there is no divine spark. There's many a man alive, no more of value than a dead dog, believe me. And you've seen them hang each other the way I have back in the old country. Equality. What I'm fighting for is the right to prove I'm a better man than many of them. Where have you seen this divine spark in operation, Colonel? Where have you noted this magnificent equality?
Now in the last two scenes, we've observed Chamberlain the idealist and Chamberlain the military leader, two fantastic qualities he had. But in this scene, he takes a backseat to a fictional Billy Yank sergeant named Buster Kilrain. While Chamberlain discusses the divine spark he sees in every man, going on about wanting to free the slaves like he discussed in scene number 3, Kilrain sees things a bit differently. Kilrain is no flaming racist, but he sees the darker side of things, essentially saying Chamberlain's whole divine spark thing is BS. His experience from back in Ireland tells him the values of fighting for justice and fighting to prove you're the better man. A very interesting conversation indeed. Makes it all the more sad when Kilrain dies later, as he's a character that you're emotionally invested in. For scene number 6, we have Longstreet and the British officer's discussion. Take a listen.
You call yourselves Americans, but you're really just transplanted Englishmen. Look at your names. Lee, Hood, Longstreet, Jackson, Stuart.
My people were Dutch.
And the same for your adversaries. Meade, Hooker, Hancock, and, shall I say, Lincoln. Same God, same language, same culture and history, same songs, stories, legends, myths. Different dreams. Different dreams. So very sad, very sad.
You English had your own Civil War once, didn't you?
Oh, that was ages ago. Wouldn't dream of it now. Cavaliers and Roundheads. Off with his head, off with his head. Heads lying about everywhere. One could hardly take a step without tripping over a fallen crown. We're much more civilized now, I assure you.
Oh, yeah.
We have so much in common, your country and mine. I earnestly hope that we shall become allies.
Your government never ally itself with a confederacy that had the institution of slavery. You know that, and so do I.
That's a true scene for the history buffs and maybe not as much the military buffs, so it definitely stands out to me. It is funny the way James Longstreet, the Confederate general, ribs the British officer, telling him, "Haven't you English had your own civil war?" or "Haven't we beat you guys twice?" But of course, the situation of America beating the British is complicated by the fact that, as of this moment, America was split in half, and this British guy seemed perfectly comfortable with allying with the South. If you read your history books, that seemed to be quite a rumor at the time, given British reliance on cotton. But Britain had made slavery illegal decades earlier, and Longstreet levels with the officer, saying, "We can't be allying with you guys as long as slavery is legal here." What an interesting piece of history, let alone the fact that the British officer makes many comparisons of how they and the Americans aren't so different. Transplanted Englishmen, you could say. For scene number 7, we have Lee reprimands Jeb Stuart. Take a listen.
You, sir, with your cavalry, are the eyes of this army. Without your cavalry, we are made blind. That has already happened once. It must never, never happen again.
Sir, since I no longer hold the general...
I have told you there is no time for that. There is no time.
There's another fight coming tomorrow, and we need you. We need every man, God knows. You must take what I have told you. and learn from it, as a man does. There has been a mistake. It will not happen again. I know your quality. You are one of the finest cavalry officers I have ever known, and your service to this army has been invaluable.
Jeb Stuart was Lee's cavalry commander. In the first 2 days of Gettysburg, July 1st and 2nd, he was AWOL. Lee had to reprimand him for being out of contact, essentially, as you kinda need all hands on deck for an important battle. I think what stands out about this scene is Martin Sheen's great portrayal of Lee. Lee seems mostly cool and calculated throughout the duration of this marathon film, so when he goes ballistic on Stuart, you know he's done messed up. But Sheen's portrayal here quickly went from angry to, hey, we need you, so don't mess up again. You can almost sense the worry and nervous anticipation in Lee's voice throughout, so again, great job from Martin Sheen, but we're not done with General Lee quite yet. For scene number 8, we have, Sir, I believe this attack will fail. Have a listen.
The attack will be preceded by massed artillery. We'll concentrate all of our guns on that one small area. A foot on fire, as Napoleon would call it. When the artillery has had its effect, your charge will break the line. You will have nearly 15,000 men at your command, General, and you may begin whenever you're ready. But plan it well. Do plan it well, I pray you, sir. We stake everything on this.
Sir, with your permission. Sir, I've been a soldier all my life. I have served from the ranks on up. You know my service. But, sir, I must tell you now, I believe this attack will fail. No 15,000 men ever made can take that bridge. It's a distance of more than a mile over open ground. When the men come out of the trees, they will be under fire of Yankee artillery from all over the field. And those are Hancock's boys. And now they have the stone wall like we did at Fredericksburg.
We do our duty, General. We do what we must do.
Yes, sir.
Now we have Lee and Longstreet combined together for this scene that predicts the doom of Pickett's charge. Essentially, Lee set General George Pickett up to fail, charging up a Union high ground and being mowed down. Longstreet saw nothing but failure with this plan, just as Buford saw failure earlier in Day 1 if the Confederates gained high ground. And the thing was, it took guts to speak up to Lee, because up until this point, the South was largely winning the war with his military tactics. Longstreet spoke freely, with permission, spoke his mind, but ultimately there was nothing he could do about Lee's orders. And so Pickett charged on, for Virginia. For scene number 9, we essentially have an extension of the last scene, Longstreet's nod. Have a listen.
Message from Alexander. Hurry up, for God's sake, or the artillery can't help you. Your orders. General Longstreet, should I commence the attack? I shall lead my division forward, sir.
After Longstreet failed to divert Lee from his doomed attack, Longstreet had no choice but to essentially command it. When Pickett asked for Longstreet's permission to attack, all he could manage was a meager nod. You can see his devastation in doing so, sending Pickett's men essentially off to die. You can see the pain after all the bloodshed is over, but you could see it beforehand too, because Longstreet knew what was going to happen. Now, old Pickett has some self-deprecating humor earlier in the movie, saying how he graduated last at West Point and how the Yankees have all the brains. But he's essentially trusting his weaker military brain to Longstreet, and Longstreet knows in his heart that he's let him down. And finally, for scene number 10, we have what is, in my opinion, the most powerful and iconic scene in the whole movie, the climactic end. General Lee, I have no division. Have a listen.
General Pickett. Sir, you may reform to the rear of this ridge and set up a defensive position. General Pickett, sir, you must look to your division.
General Lee, I have no division.
So as we've discussed from the last couple scenes, Pickett's charge was a doomed failure. But how did it affect the man who led it, George Pickett? Well, needless to say, he was quite emotional. This leaves one of the most powerful quotes from the entire war, what is actually believed to be a real quote where he says, "I have no division," because obviously they all got killed. It truly shows the brutality of war, and Pickett would go on to live the next 12 years of his life, never forgiving Lee for the attack that took down so many of his men. He would say, "That old man had my division slaughtered." Well, that was my opinion on the movie Gettysburg. Are there any other scenes from the movie I missed that stood out to you? Let me know in the comments. I should be back to more regular uploads on this channel, so let me know what else you'd like to see. Bye bye.